So it has been a long week for the New Orleans Saints. I'm gonna be covering week 6 and week 7. Week 6 loss to the Buccaneers, week seven's loss to the Broncos. Um, this is a long week. Um, not really, not really mad. I'm just more disappointed. A lot of things have happened over the last week. Um, Feels like it was inevitable with certain people. But things happen. Um, the we'll start with the Bucks game. I'll go through like I've done always, scores, turnovers, stuff like that. Then I'll uh go and then I'll do the same thing with the Broncos game, and then I'll kind of do a combined my thoughts so far. Um, not a great not a great part of the season. It's a lot of injuries, so we'll get to that. So Bucks at Saints first quarter. Baker Mayfield threw a 4-yard touchdown to Chris Godwin. Buccaneers defensive back Tyke Smith forced Saints wide receiver Chris Olave to fumble the ball. Buccaneers safety Antoine Winfield Jr. recovered it and ran 58 yards for a touchdown. On that play, Olave got hurt. There was a bit of a helmet-to-helmet contact. No penalty was called, but Chris Olave got a concussion. He was out for that game and then would be out for the next game. Um, Buccaneers kicker Chase McLaughlin kicked a 26-yard field goal, and that was the end of the first quarter. Second quarter, a long second quarter. So the Bucks come out to a really early lead, and Saints come rolling back. Saints kicker Blake Grupe kicked a 42-yard field goal. Saints punt returner Rashid Shaheed returned a punt 54 yards for a touchdown. Baker Mayfield threw an interception to Saints cornerback Paulson Adebo, who ran it to the Tampa Bay 8-yard line, but a penalty on Adebo set the Saints up at the Tampa Bay 28-yard line. Blake Grupe kicked a 29-yard field goal. Baker Mayfield had a tip pass intercepted by safety Jonathan Abram, who returned it to the Tampa Bay 10-yard line. Saints quarterback Spencer Rattler threw his first ever touchdown to a 10-yard touchdown to wide receiver Bub Means, also a rookie. Baker Mayfield threw a 36-yard touchdown to running back Sean Tucker. Saints running back Alvin Kamara ran in a 4-yard touchdown. Baker Mayfield had a tip pass intercepted by Saints defensive end Cameron Jordan, setting the Saints up at their own 40-yard line. They didn't end up doing anything with that. The Saints led at halftime 27-24. That is the most I've ever written for anything for the Saints, Eagles, Phillies, anything in one specific quarter, inning, period of time, anything. That was a lot to cover. Um, a lot happened, both sides of the ball. Third quarter, this is going to be the shortest one. One sentence. Baker Mayfield threw a 55-yard touchdown to Chris Godwin. That was it. Fourth quarter, Spencer Rattler threw an interception to Buccaneers cornerback Zion McCollum, who gave the Bucks the ball at their own 42-yard line. That was a great play by McCollum. Honestly, I think the ball with placement was great for Rattler. That was just a spectacular play by McCollum. I gotta give props to him on that. I think McCollum's having a great year. Um, Baker Mayfield threw an 8-yard touchdown to tight end Cade Otton. Two-point conversion was unsuccessful. Buccaneers running back Bucky Irving ran in a 1-yard touchdown. Spencer Rattler threw an interception to Tyke Smith, who set the Buccaneers up with the ball at their own 36-yard line. Sean Tucker ran in a 5-yard touchdown, and the Buccaneers won 51-27. Um, some small thoughts before I go into the Broncos game. Secondary looked very confused to start the game with Paulson Adebo was on Mike Evans for a lot of the game. I mean, anyone on the Buck side, and I mean, I was talking to a former Buccaneers administrator, about the game while it was happening because it was a very good game the first half. I mean, we both agreed it was a great game. We thought this was going to be a game of the year by the end of the first half, but the Saints just couldn't keep up. Um, and we were a little confused that Adebo was on Evans and not Lattimore. It really didn't have to do, and he thought it had to do with Lattimore's play. Lattimore has actually done pretty good this year. I think maybe it was a discipline thing, maybe to, which is shocking from someone like Dennis Allen. But I don't know. I mean, I would have just, I mean, we all know how Evans and Lattimore are every single time they play one another. So it was interesting. Alvin Kamara had multiple drops throughout the game. I think maybe it's just getting used to who's throwing the ball. I don't know. He was dropping a lot of passes. Rattler looked good despite the injuries on the O-line and to Olave. In this game, um, his one major mistake was the last interception. The first interception, that was a great play by McCollum. There's nothing, hats off to him. Um, the second interception was just a bad interception. The game was already over at that point, but it was a bad interception. It was more than likely just a disconnect between Rattler and the receiver on a route. So it looked like one of the worst throws you'll see of the year. Um, Third down defense continued to be an issue. It just seemed like they couldn't get off the field in the second half, and that resulted in just not being able to give the offense time to keep up. So I don't know. A lot of issues that came out from that game. And then we go into the Broncos Saints game. So going into the game, a lot of injuries. So Derek Carr still got his injury to his oblique. Olave had the concussion, so he was gonna be out. For anyone who gets a concussion on Sunday and they gotta play Thursday, more than likely not playing. Um, Rashid Shaheed, we found out that he was out for the year. Um, very earlier in the day, he had an injury to his meniscus. He needed to get surgery. It was a very shocking one because, I mean, after the game, nobody really expected anything, and then Monday comes and we hear that Shaheed has an injury, and it doesn't sound very good, and we're thinking, okay, maybe he's going to be out a couple weeks, and then we find out it's meniscus and he needs surgery, and he's out for the year, and it was stunning. That was the most shocking injury that I've seen of the year up until Paulson Adebo's midway through this Broncos game. Um, Taysom Hill wasn't playing. Kind of figured that he was questionable on a short week too. He's had that injury, so this will give him like a mini bye to rest up. He'll be fully healthy for the next game. Um, yeah, I mean, we saw Cedric Wilson, Bub Means, Mason Tipton as the receivers. Uh, Not a great look. Offensive line just battled injuries all year long. Really outside of Fuaga and Penning. I mean, that's the interior offensive line has battled injuries. Secondary, I'll get into Lattimore, but yeah, I mean, there's been injuries. Pete Warner's not back yet, so a lot of injuries going into the game. So now I get into the recap. First quarter, Broncos kicker Will Lutz, former New Orleans Saint, kicks a 46-yard field goal. Saints quarterback Spencer Rattler is strip sacked by linebacker Cody Barton. You'll hear his name a lot. And linebacker Quan Alexander, also former Saint, recovers at the Broncos 45-yard line. Second quarter, Will Lutz kicks a 32-yard field goal. Broncos running back Javonte Williams runs in an 8-yard touchdown. Saints kicker Blake Grupe kicked a 35-yard field goal, with Will Lutz kicked a 52-yard field goal. Broncos led 16-3 at halftime. Third quarter, Will Lutz kicked a 38-yard field goal. Javonte Williams ran in a 5-yard touchdown. Saints linebacker Willie Gay Jr. forced a fumble on Broncos running back Audric Estime and recovers the fumble at the Denver 47-yard line. Spencer Rattler is hit from behind by Broncos cornerback Jaquan McMillan. The ball going up in the air is ruled a fumble. I mean, it could be a fumble or an interception because the ball kind of came out of his hands a certain way that, yeah, it could be a fumble, interception, either way. It was caught by Broncos linebacker Cody Barton and returned 52 yards for a touchdown. Saints backup quarterback Jake Haener came in. kind of when the game was over. He threw a 12-yard touchdown to wide receiver Cedric Wilson, and the Broncos won 33-10. Um, Entering the game, Saints had the 32nd ranked defense, but it didn't really feel like it until the Tampa Bay game. I think a lot of the stats were because the Saints went like early in the year they came out to this early lead and just dominated. So the Saints were playing chew the clock while the other team's offense, the Saints were playing prevent basically, and just for the rest of the game because it's like, all right, we're dominating teams, so offenses just got a lot of yards out of them. Um, so it didn't really feel like it until the Buccaneers game. Uh, because the Buccaneers game was just terrible defense, missed tackles. I mean, the missed tackles were all over the place, and in the Denver game. Sean Payton returned, and Drew Brees got inducted to the Saints Hall of Fame. Sean Payton brought in a lot of former Saints players to Denver. So we saw like Lil Jordan Humphrey, we saw Quan Alexander, we saw Will Lutz. Will Lutz had a great game. Um, saw a lot of former Saints on that Broncos team. Um, and then Drew Brees gets inducted in the Saints Hall of Fame. It was a very emotional night for a lot of people. I mean, I went into that game. Uh, I mean, I didn't think it was gonna be emotional. It's a Thursday night game, but yeah, it was very emotional for me. I mean, I loved watching Drew. He's my favorite football player ever, favorite athlete ever. I mean, it never really hit me that he was retired. I think until Thursday. Um, as weird as that sounds, I mean, I don't know how other people feel about like when a player as great as someone like Drew plays for an organization for so long, or you grew up watching them and then they retire. I don't know. For some people, it hits different. Like when they retire, some people hits them right away. For me, this one didn't feel real until Thursday. I mean, I loved watching Drew play. Even I still think I mean, his arm wasn't that great, but he's the most accurate quarterback in NFL history. There's so many stats that back up why he is the most accurate quarterback ever. Um, and even at his late stages of his career, he was still completing 70+% of his passes, stuff that not many quarterbacks in today's league even do. So it just when he retired, when he did, I mean, I thought it was time, but I don't know. It never hit me until Thursday. Um, and I'm happy for him. I can't wait to see him go into the Hall of Fame, into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So yeah, I'm happy for him. I'm glad honestly, I am glad all these former Saints players on the Broncos got to see him too, because a lot of them played with Drew. And then obviously Sean was there. I'm so glad Sean Payton was there to see Drew. Um, yeah, it was great. I thought Sean Payton handled it the way Sean Payton should handle it. He's a coach of another team. He understands that he made such a great impact on New Orleans and the city of New Orleans, and regardless of his coaching status. And he really, it was really class act of Sean, to the way he dealt with everything. Yeah, it was a very emotional night for everyone. But getting back to the game, Saints capitalized on first down from an off balance throw. Oh, from Bo Nix. This was earlier in the game on the first drive, not first down. Yeah, Bo Nix he was very off balance on a lot of his throws. And I mean, they could have probably dropped 40 on the Saints, but he just early in the game, he just wasn't doing that. I mean, I went into the game, Terry, who you've seen in some of the videos, you saw Terry host the stream on Friday night. Um, and I joined in, before this game on Thursday. He was asking me about like bets and stuff, and he was asking me, "Do you think Bo's gonna run for certain amount of yards? Do you think Spencer Rattler will run for a certain amount of yards? Do you think Kamara will run for a certain amount of yards? And I said, yeah, I think Bo Nix will absolutely. Bo Nix was the most, I was the most definite answer that he's going to run really well. The one negative with the Saints defense is against rushing quarterbacks. That's the biggest hole in that defense. I know people will say the run game, but when everybody's healthy and everybody's playing well and the defense is schematically playing well, the worst part is against mobile quarterbacks. I mean, we'll see guys Lamar Jackson-esque players go and play the Saints and just tear them up running and scrambling. It's just I don't think they have an answer. I don't think Dennis Allen has an answer for mobile quarterbacks, which you should in today's NFL. That's something that you should work on. Um, but yeah, I knew that was the answer. I knew Bo Nix was gonna definitely run for that. Spencer Rattler. Um, I thought he was probably gonna run for his life. So I think he did hit. I'm not sure if he hit his rushing total that he needed. Kamara, the Saints were down really early in the game, so it's in terms of running with Kamara. I didn't expect this game to be as big of a deficit as it was. Even I mean, I think there was a very big chance that the Saints would lose this game, and but not as big as this. A lot of things happened. Offensive line and coaches are just not helping Rattler with protections. A lot of injuries. I feel so bad for Rattler, and some people say, "Oh, he did this in college and this and that," and you know. Uh, you gotta watch. You have to actually watch Rattler right now. Rattler in college, I've said this over many videos that he showed inconsistencies. That's why he dropped in the draft. I get that. And I don't think anyone should deny his talent. I think he has a strong arm and he's a great athlete playing there. Um, and I think he's got above average accuracy, but he's just very inconsistent. Sometimes his decision making is poor. Uh, and I think maybe you just need the right coach to teach him, and I think he can be a very talented quarterback. Um, Situations like this do not help when you have basically a band-aid offensive line. Um, some of it's working, some of it isn't. Um, you have you have two rookie wide receivers and Cedric Wilson, who I've spoken out since before preseason. Why is he even on the team? I'm not a huge fan of Cedric Wilson at all. I just didn't. I don't understand why he was even on the roster. It just and even in games like this, it seems like you have. It seems like throughout the year there have been four wide receivers out playing him, and that is Olave obviously and Shaheed obviously, but also Mason Tipton and Bub Means. I think they're all four of them have outplayed Cedric Wilson. It seems like anyone you put out there at receiver will outplay Cedric Wilson. Um, games like this, you'll see less and less of Foster Moreau because you're trying to create plays. So you saw a little more Juwan Johnson in the past game. Um, I mean, you did see Foster Moreau in the past games, but you might have needed another blocker over to help protect Rattler because man, he was getting pressured all night. And you know, going into this game, the Broncos did not have a very good pass rush on defense. They were statistically towards the bottom of the league, and they had tied the best pressure rate or pressure most pressure something. It was something to do with pressures from any team in a game this year. Um, with how good the offensive line played at the beginning of the year, and where they've come, I mean, you can't really blame Rattler for. I mean, are you going to say he held the ball too long because they were or his very quick compared to every other team in the league since week one. Um, there is no quarterback in that situation who is going to get the ball out that quick. I mean, you have to design plays to make those quick passes, but some of those, I mean, as any quarterback, I don't know what you do. You would have to physically handle that edge rusher, and a quarterback shouldn't be demanded of doing that. So I think there was issues with protections, both from a coaching perspective and a player perspective, going into that game. And I feel bad for Rattler. I feel bad for any quarterback who would be have to be that because I think even if Derek Carr was playing, I just don't think that it does anything. Jake Haener, same thing. I don't. Drew Brees in his prime. I just don't think it helps. Um, uh, Rookie and getting into that, Rattler's a rookie, so he's going to be learning. He should be learning stuff. Should be learning about protections. Obviously, this is something that he should have been taught maybe going into this game, maybe going in this week. But this is something that in the future you got to teach him about protections. Um, I said if this doesn't cause Dennis Allen to be fired, then I don't know when he will. This is like this type of game. In my head, from a logical standpoint, I said to myself, they're not going to fire him after you play Sean Payton because then Saints ownership's basically admitting that they screwed up with letting Sean Payton go to Denver. Um, so I don't think he'll get fired after this game. I think he might get fired after the next game. Um, if he doesn't get fired mid-season, I think that it is a wasted opportunity to see some of the other coaches on the team, maybe like Clint Kubiak, take over. Um, Alontae Taylor, Marshawn Lattimore, and Spencer Rattler all got hurt. Alontae Taylor, I feel so bad for him. Or not Alontae Taylor. Paulson Adebo got hurt, not Alontae Taylor. I wrote down Alontae Taylor. He didn't get hurt. Paulson Adebo did. I feel so bad for Paulson Adebo. I didn't really see the injury right away, and I kept looking at replays, and I just didn't really see how he got hurt. But then I looked a little closer, and it's pretty bad injury. Adebo's scheduled to be a free agent after this year, and he breaks his leg. I feel so bad for him. Um, I really liked Paulson Adebo. I really do. I thought. I mean, going into the year, everybody, if you've watched any of the videos, I knew Lattimore. I thought Lattimore was going to get traded, and I love Marshawn Lattimore. I really do. I would love if he's a Saint for the rest of his life. Um, but I also saw the depth of the rest of the team, and I understood if we got rid of Lattimore, I understood why, because we have depth and we would get more compensation for a talented player like Marshawn Lattimore. With Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor, Kool-Aid McKinstry, I understand completely. Um, but man, it's seeing Paulson Adebo get hurt like that. I mean, at his age, I really hope he comes back from this, but I'm hoping the best for him. I mean, if you break your leg and you're playing corner, you're a good man-to-man corner, especially. I don't know many cornerbacks that have ever come back from something like that. I mean, I'm sure transitioning the safety would be something good for him something to think about. But if he can regain that speed and get back to that, then I'd absolutely want him back. But you know, he'll be a free agent next year, coming off a broken leg. I feel so bad for him. This is a terrible time right now for him, and I'm really hoping if forget about being a Saints fan. I'm really hoping the best for him. I really hope he, whether that's with the Saints next year or with another team, I really hope that he comes back from this and he comes back better than ever. Um, Marshawn Lattimore got hurt. I mean, it seems like everybody's getting hurt. Spencer Rattler gets hurt later in the game when the game is pretty much over, and he's getting pummeled by players. It sucked. I mean, at this point, I mean, the quarterback, our starting quarterback, our backup quarterback, Kamara's been dealing with an injury since the Cowboys game. He's questionable almost every single week since then. No Olave, no Rashid Shaheed is out for the year. Um, we got the entire interior offensive line has been hurt at some point. Eric McCoy's on IR. Cesar Ruiz been hurt. Then Taysom Hill's been hurt for a few games. On the defense, you got Lattimore, Paulson, Debo. Demario Davis missed his first game. Pete Warner's been missing a game. Interior defensive line has had some injuries here and there. I mean, the entire strong safety, the safety opposite Tyrann Mathieu has been getting hurt. So yeah, a lot of injuries all over the place, and that might be the one thing that's maybe that Dennis Allen that the team is hanging on to Dennis Allen for is, well, there's a lot of injuries. Either way, there's a lot of issues with the team regardless of the injuries. Um, but yeah, Dennis Allen, it doesn't matter. He's made poor decisions, and in this game, he made some of the dumbest decisions I've seen a coach make. He took a timeout before the half just to kneel the ball. Why are you doing that? Um, uh, there was a punt earlier in the game. We were on fourth down and short, and Saints were trailing. They were about to punt, and he was getting booed. Fans were booing him because it was short yardage. You go for it, and they booed him so bad they made Dennis Allen call a timeout and go for it, and they picked up the first down, and fans cheered. That's how sad that the fans are getting with Dennis Allen. Fans were leaving early in this game. And like Kamara said, like I've never seen fans leave the stadium that like that. I mean, I remember when the defense was terrible and Drew Brees was carrying this team, and I mean historically bad. Um, but it's Saints are in a bad spot. In terms of contract situations, coaches, a lot of issues in general. Um, I think I'm already looking towards next year with the amount of injuries, the extent of those injuries. Um, the only way that that'll deter me from just thinking about next year is if Dennis Allen is fired soon. If Dennis Allen is fired soon, and we see this next whoever comes up, which I'd like it to be Clint Kubiak, um, kind of take over for the offense and then let someone like Joe Woods, which I don't like that idea. I'm not a huge fan of Joe Woods. Someone good take over the defense because there are so many great players at every position. Um, I mean, if you on paper, looking past this year, uh, there's a hole with the quarterback situation. We don't really know what the future is of the quarterback situation. We're in more of a temporary like we're looking. Um, that's why I do want to see what Rattler can do with a healthy offense because if if for 3 weeks he just plays like he's been playing the past 2 weeks with a healthy Saints team, then it's like, all right, we know this guy isn't the future. It's not like we drafted him to be the future either way. Um, Derek Carr is more of just the temporary quarterback. I don't expect him to be playing lights out. Even if he's scoring and not turning the ball over, then that's all I need out of Derek Carr. Kamara is the future of is this team. I never want to see Alvin Kamara in another uniform ever. If he ever is in another uniform, I will look at Dennis Allen as one of the one of the destroyers of a legendary draft class. Um, I never want to see him in another uniform. Uh, Outside of that, Olave, I mean Olave's should be locked up. And Rashid Shaheed. I'd like to see the Saints get a proven possession receiver. Someone like Michael Thomas would work perfectly for this group. I mean, you have the speedster and Rashid Shaheed. You have a route runner in Olave, a young route runner who's very good at route running, and Michael Thomas would fit perfectly for this. But I don't know if Michael Thomas can stay healthy enough. But Michael has spoken openly about the issues with the NFL and their medical staff. I'm not inside the medical rooms, so I don't know, but I'm sure he knows firsthand. Um, and from what I've heard from other former players, they've said similar things. So uh, I I fully support if he never wants to wear a Saints uniform, not because he doesn't want to be a Saint, but because he doesn't want to deal with that medical staff. So I completely understand. I would love if he came back to the Saints. Uh, I mean, I've always thought highly of Michael Thomas. I mean, at his peak for a couple years, he was one of the best receivers I ever saw in their prime. Um, and then and also, I've never seen a cornerback to this day. I've never seen a cornerback shut down a healthy Michael Thomas. And it's more, if he's had a bad game, it's more because of the quarterback play, maybe post Breeze. But when Breeze was throwing to Michael Thomas, there's not a single cornerback on this earth that could cover him. There was all pro corners that were getting torched by Michael Thomas. Um, and he could run any route in the book. I know people called him Slant Man. Um, I don't really understand why. Um, that's a whole other thing. Uh, but if anything, if you watched Saints games when Michael Thomas is out, you knew he made a lot of out routes. That was a more common play because he just knew how to work the sideline so good. And Drew Brees was so accurate. So if the ball is in the vicinity, Michael Thomas could catch anything. Um, so yeah, anyways, someone like Michael Thomas would work. I love Jawan Johnson and Foster Moreau. I love that duo. I think they complement one another, and also throwing Taysom Hill into there. I still want Taysom Hill to be a part of this team when he is I mean, this is the least healthy he has been. But going into the year, I knew his usage was going to go up. It's the high risk you get into a player who's in his 30s and playing a lot of different positions. And that's where you kind of got to look in the draft for someone like that, a Swiss Army knife, someone like Tyler Warren. Um, Maybe they can draft Tyler Warren and that can be the guy that that can take over for Taysom when he retires. Offensive line, I mean, going into the year, I said the offensive line was going to be the part that determines just how good this team is. And man, when they were healthy, they were one of the best offensive lines in football. Eric McCoy was the best center in football when he was healthy this year, and Lucas Patrick just showed up out of nowhere and was one of the best guards in football. Um, but I think you have a rookie tackle, an undisciplined other tackle that in Trevor Penning that need that he needs the rest of the guys to be healthy for him to play solid. Um And Lucas Patrick's been dealing with an injury the past few weeks. No Cesar Ruiz and no Eric McCoy. So the offensive line has been through a lot. Lucas Patrick is scheduled to be a free agent. I would love to retain him. With how well he played, he is older, but with how well he played, I think I would be willing to pay him. Um, I like that structure. And then on defense, interior defense line looks fantastic. I think just schematically they need to get fixed. I think in a 3-4 defense, I think that's the next step for this defense is they need to go into a 3-4 defense. Um, maybe have Kalen Saunders play nose tackle, and have Brissy and Nathan Shefford on the defensive end spot, not defensive end, defensive tackle spot right outside the nose. And edge rusher, I love Cameron Jordan. He's been so awesome to watch. He's not as fast as he was at the beginning at like 5 years ago. Um, he's definitely taken a step back. I think maybe the next step for him is maybe to move if you're going to switch to a 3-4, maybe rotate into a 3-4 defensive tackle. That's all I can think of. I don't want to see him ever wear another uniform. It's just I don't it sucks because I do think I mean you clearly see over the last 2 years his play has dipped. But I love watching him. I love watching videos of him post game. I love his tweets and stuff. He always has great mentality. He's a great leader. It's just I don't know how I want to figure out a way to utilize him, any bit of him. Uh, we really have no edge rushers on the team. Chase Young, just get rid of him. Uh, that's going in the off season. That's the number one position you should be looking at is edge rushers and just anyone. That's a full reset. Draft someone and sign someone. Linebackers, Demario Davis is fantastic. He's getting older, but Pete Warner is also very good. I love watching Pete Warner. I think he's great in coverage, and Anthony Orji I think is coming up. I think if Orji continues the way he's playing, I think he could fill in very nicely for Demario whenever Demario wants to hang it up. But I love watch. I think the playing like off ball linebacker. I think the linebacker position is pretty set. Corner. I mean, I don't know what the future holds for Marshawn Lattimore or Alvin Kamara. And I think with Marshawn Lattimore, I love watching Marshawn Lattimore. He's the best cornerback ever in Saints history. And I don't want to see him play for another team. Um but we're probably going to go into next year the same way we went into this year. So I think he has an opt out. I won't be shocked if Lattimore says he wants to opt out. Uh, unless we get another coach and he really likes his coach. But and that's where firing Dennis Allen now or soon will help keep these guys from just up and leaving. So I really want Lattimore to stay. I've seen so many Saints fans post saying like I'm gonna miss Alvin Kamara and Marshawn Lattimore. I don't want to see them go, and this sucks. Um, After Lattimore, Paulson Adebo's scheduled to be a free agent. I think with the injury, I don't know if I expect him to be in a Saints uniform ever again. Um, and that sucks. I love watching Paulson Adebo. So next year, it's very possible the corners are Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry. You know, we draft Kool-Aid McKinstry. I thought he was going to transition to safety and kind of balance out the secondary, but I guess now he's going to play corner. Alontae Taylor, he showed a lot of promise this year, but a lot of it is from the slot. So going into next year, it's very possible the Saints are going to need an outside corner, and that's where I don't want to see Marshawn Lattimore go. I'd like Kool-Aid to go play outside and Lattimore play outside, and then Alontae play the slot. Tyrann Matthews scheduled to be a free agent. Tyrann loves playing here. I would love to re-sign Tyrann. I mean, he's a defensive player of the year candidate for the first couple weeks. He's not really his fault the way that rest of the defense has played over the last couple weeks, but I think he's played great football, all pro level football. I still think he's playing at a high level. Um, you got to find another safety who can play right next to him, though. That's a big issue, especially when tight ends are playing against the Saints. That seems to be the weakness in the defense outside of edge rusher. And then special teams, Groupie's having a great year. Um, haven't seen much of the punter. I know he's new this year, or Hayball, um, but I really haven't seen much of him until the last couple weeks. So I don't really have much to say about him. Um, yeah, that's really it. I mean, I think there's a lot you can work with this team, and I think with the right coach, I think this team is successful, and I think with if you can if you can find someone, I mean, you saw at the beginning of the year, if Dennis Allen was controlling the defense the way his defenses normally play, and Kubiak is calling the offense, and everybody's healthy, you see how talented this team can be. And injuries piled up, some questionable decision making by Dennis Allen, and suddenly we're where we're at right now. So, um, I'm I'm kind of in the mindset that Dennis Allen needs to be fired now. So, we'll see how the rest of this next couple weeks go. I'm not mad. I'm just kind of disappointed, and a lot of it's the injuries. I know injuries happen. So, it just sucks to see. I mean, I've seen that with the 2017 to 2020 Eagles. Yes, even the year they won the Super Bowl with Wentz and Jason Peters and Jordan Hicks and Darren Sproles all getting hurt. So, I've seen it happen. There's not really much you can do about it. So, um, I don't know. We'll see what the young guys can get. I think Bub Means looks really good. Rattler's shown some potential. And yeah, maybe see what Kendre Miller can do. Just don't want to see Marshall. I think if you're a fellow Saints fan, just keep watching Alvin Kamara and Marshawn Lattimore like it's the last time you see them. I love watching them. I said right the year Kamara was drafted. I remember right before that thinking I don't feel comfortable with where this Saints team is if Drew Brees were to retire tomorrow. I didn't see a leader until I saw Alvin Kamara. And from what I had heard, I mean, he was in quarterback locker rooms because he wanted to get into that mindset of his fellow quarterbacks, and he is an avid learner. He tries to help in every way possible, like Taysom Hill does with his versatility, but Kamara wants to be a leader, and that's why he's such a great player. And I knew when Alvin Kamara first joined this team that we finally found our leader. When Breeze retires, and and then Michael Thomas shortly thereafter, I thought Michael Thomas would be that guy too. It just sucks. Injuries kind of plagued the time after Brees retired. But even then, Michael Thomas showed he was still that guy no matter who was throwing him the ball. And then Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, I remember the days where with Brandon Browner. I remember how terrible that secondary was after the Super Bowl. Um, it was a bad, bad couple years. I remember Jarius Byrd. I remember I remember how bad those secondaries were. And I remember thinking every time I saw the Saints offense on the field that they needed to score because I knew the Saints defense wasn't going to be able to hold up. And seeing Lattimore changed my whole mindset on the Saints secondary since then. He's the best cornerback the Saints have ever had. He's been the most consistent, the most dominant, and he's been amazing. Um, I am going if he leaves, I'm gonna have this mindset in the back of my head back again that, oh my goodness, we're gonna allow a touchdown pass this drive, because that's just how the mindset was after winning the Super Bowl, that it seemed like we were gonna allow a touchdown every single drive, and that a third down stop was was almost like winning a quarter. And we knew if we were on offense, we had Drew Brees. So, yeah, those two, Lattimore and Kamara, I love watching them play. They're two of my favorite players I ever watched. I remember being at the game, at the Eagles Saints game, and seeing Lattimore get the pick six. Um, and Kamara, I've never seen someone with balance like Alvin Kamara in NFL history. It's so amazing, and I mean, I could have a whole video on watching Alvin Kamara play because he's such a unique player. And now we're seeing other players very similar to him come through college. So we have guys like Jahmyr Gibbs now that are on the Lions. We have other guys get the same tape as Kamara. I mean, I remember seeing the six touchdown game on Christmas against the Vikings, with him wearing the red and green cleats. So, yeah, I hope this isn't the last time we see these two. And yeah, I'm sorry, this is a sort of a depressing video. But with that was kind of my mindset watching that Broncos game. I was depressed with this, and there's nothing really you can do about a lot of it. So, um, all right, I'm gonna think open-minded about the next couple weeks. Gonna try and get excited for any little spark that I see out of the offense and defense, maybe in the coaches. And yeah, that's kind of what you got to do. You got to you got to look at the small things. So, all right, I'll see you in the next video. Go Saints.